At 11 p.m., my husband went to bed and kissed me goodnight as usual. I felt something was off. After thinking about it for a while. He had shaved his beard that night. What's wrong with shaving your beard? Are you not allowed to shave anymore? My best friend Chloe Parker shrugged it off. He's never shaved his beard at night before. Maybe he had a social engagement tonight. I shook my head. Ethan Quinn doesn't attend any social engagements at night. Everyone knows that. He comes home at 7 p.m. sharp every day and goes to bed at 11 p.m. He's more punctual than a monk at a temple. Well, everyone also knows he loves his wife to the bone and would risk his life for her. Chloe Parker was speechless, furrowing her brows at me. Lila Carter, you're not suspecting something, are you? I paused, then laughed. No, not at all. Just then, Ethan Quinn's phone rang. Lila, Mrs. Wilson said you didn't have much of an appetite and only drank half a bowl of soup. I had my assistant send over some of your favorite home-cooked dishes. Eat them, then take a walk before your nap. I'll take you to the musical tonight. His voice was gentle and patient, as if he were comforting a child. Chloe Parker listened, sighing and shaking her head. I have to record this and play it out there. No one would believe this is the cold-hearted Ethan Quinn. No wonder she said that. After all, Ethan Quinn was known for being ruthless and decisive in public, cold and distant. Others only knew he loved and pampered his wife, but no one knew how he loved or pampered her. I've known Ethan Quinn for 10 years and been married to him for 5. This gentle, considerate, and meticulous side of him. He only shows it to me. He knows all my preferences, what I like to eat, what I like to watch, when I'm in a good mood, when I'm prone to throwing tantrums, which brand of handbags I like, and which designer's jewelry I favor. He knows it all by heart. Once, I got upset because he was being too controlling and stormed out of the house, staying at a hotel for the night. When I returned, I found him sitting on the sofa, looking exhausted and helpless, having not slept all night. The moment he saw me, he rushed over and hugged me tightly, his voice trembling as he said, I'm sorry, Lila. I'll never do that again. Last year, we went on a trip to Santa Fe. The guest house suddenly caught fire. Ethan Quinn, who had gone out to buy us dinner, rushed inside like a madman, and 5 or 6 people couldn't stop him. I came out of another room, panicking, and called out to him. He finally emerged with bloodshot eyes, his body already on fire. He was left with a burned scar on his forehead, and every time I saw it, I felt both heartbroken and sad. But he smiled and said, this is the medal of being Lila Carter's husband. Ethan Quinn loves me. To me, this is more certain than the sun rising in the east and setting in the west. Of course, I love him too. So, when he suddenly started shaving at night, such a trivial matter, I noticed it immediately. I'm a Cancer, naturally sensitive. I also inherited my mother's tendency to be overly meticulous and prone to internal conflict. Any deviation from the routine in my life easily makes me uneasy. Shaving at night was likely because he had a social engagement. Since I don't have the habit of eating dinner at night, Ethan Quinn usually eats at a few of his favorite private restaurants and comes back home, never going out to social gatherings or banquets. So now, given Ethan Quinn's current status and influence, what kind of situation would make him break this routine? Could something have happened at the company, and he's hiding it from me because he doesn't want me to worry? I decided to go to his office to check. If everything is fine, that's good. But if there's a problem, I don't want Ethan Quinn to face it alone. I called Sophia Taylor. She is the company's financial director and my roommate from university. Back then, when her family was deep in debt and had no way out, I lent her money and introduced her to Ethan Quinn's company. Sophia Taylor practically ran down to greet me. After a warm embrace, she cheerfully pulled me into the elevator. Lila Carter, you don't come by often enough. Everyone in the company has been waiting for you. Mr. Quinn is always so cold, and only when you're around do we have a better day. I couldn't help but laugh and asked, is there something going on at the company recently? Yes, something big. What? I stopped in my tracks. The company's performance has doubled, and employee bonuses have doubled. Isn't that big news? Sophia Taylor looked radiant. Despite her difficult life, she remained optimistic and enthusiastic, which was why I liked her and was willing to help her. Ethan Quinn was in a meeting, so Sophia Taylor accompanied me to his office to wait. As we passed by the general manager's office, I saw several young, beautiful women sitting inside, all unfamiliar faces. I couldn't help but think. Could Ethan Quinn be paying attention to his image because of one of them? The thought made me startle. I immediately dismissed the thought. What am I thinking? That's Ethan Quinn. Back when his company hosted a beauty pageant, countless stunning women surrounded him, yet he remained untouched, with no rumors of any kind. Now, those girls. It's impossible. What's wrong? Sophia Taylor asked. I bit my lip but couldn't help asking. Is Ethan Quinn hiring new assistants? Sophia Taylor thought for a moment. No, he's not hiring assistants. Oh, you mean those girls? The company is expanding its business, so there's a lot more external relations work. Mr. Quinn wants to get home on time, so he had someone put together a public relations team. She smiled and tilted her head at me, teasing, Lila Carter, you're a top-tier beauty, the queen of the school. Are you really worried about this? I sighed helplessly, right, you figured me out. Sophia Taylor wrapped her arm around my shoulder and laughed, you'll never change your tendency to overthink things. Don't worry, they're only responsible for external events. Mr. Quinn never asks them to do anything for him. After Sophia Taylor left, I sat in Ethan Quinn's office chair, looking at the row of my photos on the desk and sighed. So the company is fine, and it's not about pleasing some guy. He shaved his beard, maybe he was trying out a new razor, or maybe it was just a whim. Sigh. Chloe Parker and Sophia Taylor had already cut to the chase with me. If I hadn't found Ethan Quinn, this perfect husband, forcing myself to be so obsessive every day, I'd drive myself to death. I'm truly a sensitive soul, a chosen one with an inward-focused personality. Knock knock. A woman entered, bowing her head as she brought in tea. She bent her waist deeply, placed the cup down respectfully, and whispered. Mrs. Carter, please call me if you need anything. I froze. This woman was Lydia Brooks, Ethan Quinn's secretary. What I didn't expect was. She was still by Ethan Quinn's side. A few years ago, Ethan Quinn came home from work with a dark, gloomy expression. I quickly noticed something was wrong and asked what was wrong. He sat on the sofa in silence for a long time before finally speaking, saying he had encountered the family of the person who caused the accident years ago. When Ethan Quinn was 18, his parents were killed in a car accident while waiting at a red light. A drunk driver rear-ended their car, and all three people in both vehicles died instantly. Lydia Brooks was the daughter of the drunk driver. When Ethan Quinn discovered this, Lydia Brooks had already been working as his secretary for 3 months. His eyes were red, and his hands were trembling. Lila, what should I do? I know she's innocent, but I can't control myself. I want to confront her. I even thought about strangling her. I held him tightly and comforted him softly, it's all in the past. You don't have to force yourself to face it. If you don't want to see her, you don't have to. That day, I saw him for the first time like a helpless child, clinging to me tightly and refusing to let go. After some time, I cautiously brought up the topic again. He seemed calm. I transferred her to another floor. I was concerned. Why not just fire her? Won't that be better for you? He appeared composed. You're right. I can't keep living in the past. Let's just consider her existence as a grindstone to sharpen my character. Don't worry, I'm fine. Later, I occasionally went to the company but never saw Lydia Brooks again, nor did Ethan Quinn mention the incident. I assumed he had resolved the issue. To my surprise, today, in Ethan Quinn's office, I saw Lydia Brooks again. I thought Ethan Quinn's secretary was someone else. Lydia Brooks smiled nervously. Miss Fitzgerald is on maternity leave, so we're taking turns covering for her in the logistics department. That's tough. I nodded with a smile. Lydia Brooks wasn't particularly attractive. She was short, slender, with ordinary features, and dressed plainly. She spoke and acted in a way that made her seem nervous and timid. Like a weak, defenseless rabbit. She bowed her head toward me and whispered. Mrs. Carter, I'll step out if there's nothing else. As she lowered her head, I caught a glimpse of several distinct red marks on her neck. Like kiss marks. Ethan Quinn returned from the meeting, dressed in his usual suit and white shirt, looking tall and sharp. He leaned against the doorframe, not coming inside, just smiling at me. Finally, you decided to come to the office to see me. I walked over and hugged him. Will I come more often? Everyone in the company seems to welcome me. He ruffled my hair, sounding annoyed. It's mainly me. Why do you care about them? I hesitated before speaking. It was Lydia Brooks who brought me the tea earlier. He paused for a moment before murmuring a low, She's been working as a secretary part-time lately. Lila, don't worry. I've already learned to handle this properly. I looked up at him and said softly. Mom always said you have self-control and resilience, and you'll overcome any difficulty. Ethan Quinn, you're so capable now and manage the company well. She was right about you. His handsome eyebrows lowered as he looked at me, his eyes meeting mine quietly. After a moment, he leaned down and kissed my forehead. Lila, it's because of you. A week later, I was returning from an art exhibition and decided on a whim to buy some afternoon tea to visit him. The receptionist smiled and greeted me. I winked at her and said I had a surprise for Mr. Quinn. When I arrived at the chairman's office, I knocked on the door. Ethan Quinn's cold voice came from inside. I told you not to disturb me. I smiled and said, Ethan Quinn, it's me. Click. The remote-controlled electronic lock opened, and I pushed the door open. The curtains were drawn, and the room was dimly lit. Ethan Quinn sat behind his massive desk, smiling at me. Lila, why are you here? I pouted. I came to bring you afternoon tea, but you were so mean earlier. Take a 10-minute break. He said to the computer. He then removed his Bluetooth earbuds, tiredly pinched his nose, and smiled. I was in a video call and didn't realize it was you. I whispered, still in it? Yeah, I muted myself. He raised his eyebrows and smiled at me. No matter how busy I am, I always have time to eat the snacks my wife brings. His camera was still on, so I didn't go over. I sat down across from his desk and said, You're working so hard, so the wife will have to feed you herself. I opened the cake box, cut a piece with a fork, and handed it to him. He smiled, leaned forward, and opened his mouth to take it. Suddenly, his brows furrowed slightly, and a muffled groan escaped his throat. What's wrong? I asked, holding the cake. He squinted his eyes, took a bite of the cake, and after a few seconds, suppressed his voice and said, Nothing, I'm probably just too tired and felt a bit dizzy. I looked at him with concern. I won't disturb you anymore. You still have a meeting to attend. Go rest for a while. He pressed his lips together, showing a hint of apology. Next time you come, let me know in advance. I'll make time for you. His voice was hoarse. As I pushed the door open to leave, I glanced back. Ethan Quinn was leaning back in his chair, his head tilted slightly backward. The sunlight filtering through the curtains barely illuminated his chest, casting flickering shadows. As I reached the elevator, I still felt uneasy and turned back. Just as I rounded the corner, I saw Ethan Quinn's office door open. A person emerged from inside. As she looked around, I recognized her face. It was Lydia Brooks. She was still dressed and made up in her usual way, looking as fragile as ever. The only thing out of place was the lipstick on her lips, which seemed to have smudged, leaving a faint circle around her lips. I froze, unable to move. From the time I left the elevator to the time I turned back, it hadn't been more than a minute. When had Lydia Brooks gone inside? Had she gone in during that brief minute? Or? My mind flashed to Ethan Quinn's desk. It was large. Large enough to hide a person inside. At 5 p.m., I watched Lydia Brooks exit the building and head toward the parking lot. She wasn't very tall, yet she was driving a large SUV. I followed her in my car, and 10 minutes later, I watched her drive into a residential complex. It was a quiet, picturesque neighborhood of villas. I was slightly surprised. Lydia Brooks was just an ordinary logistics staff member. I never expected her to be so well connected. I was driving a Cayenne, and the security guard didn't question my claim that I was visiting a friend, raising the gate and letting me in. Soon, I spotted Lydia Brooks's large SUV parked at the entrance. I pulled over to the side of the road and stared at her house in a daze. I didn't know what I was doing. I hadn't even figured out why I was following Lydia Brooks. Perhaps it was the faint red mark on the back of her neck. Perhaps it was the lipstick she had applied for no apparent reason. In any case, it was a combination of my personality, OCD, habitual overthinking, and my body taking control of my mind. I felt a mix of frustration, guilt, and self-loathing. After sitting there for a while, I was about to leave. Suddenly, I saw a car approaching slowly. It was a car I knew all too well. Ethan Quinn's black Cullinan. For a split second, I felt my blood freeze, and I couldn't move. The Cullinan was parked quietly in front of Lydia Brooks' house. The door didn't open, and no one got out. I trembled as I picked up my phone and dialed Ethan Quinn's number. It rang for almost a second before a gentle voice came through. "Lila, what's wrong?" I struggled to control my emotions and spoke softly. "Ethan Quinn, are you still busy at the office? If you're not feeling well, you should go home early today." Ethan Quinn laughed. "I'm outside right now. I just finished work a moment ago. A senior executive suddenly needed to review a project proposal, so I'm taking someone to discuss it with him." "Who are you taking?" I asked slowly. "Miss Brooks." Looking through the car window, I saw Lydia Brooks opening the door, holding a document, and hurriedly getting into Ethan Quinn's car. Ethan Quinn's phone was still connected, and he continued patiently. "I must just be tired today. It's nothing. Lila, Ms. Brooks is in the car now. I'm about to leave. Don't worry, I'll be home by 7 p.m. After hanging up, I exhaled a long breath. He was straightforward and honest. So it was just a coincidence. A coincidence that the big boss called after work, a coincidence that Lydia Brooks was his secretary, and a coincidence that I behaved so recklessly today. Calming down, I watched the Cullinan slowly drive away, around the flower bed, and out the main gate. I started the car and was about to leave when I suddenly froze. When the Cullinan drove out, the gate automatically lifted. I slowly turned my head to look at Lydia Brooks' villa. It was a beautiful and elegant 3-story house. The windows upstairs were adorned with warm pink curtains, and the balcony was lined with a row of lush green potted plants, clearly tended to with care by the owner. I sat frozen in the car, like a statue. 10 minutes later, I got out of the car and walked to the villa's entrance. There was a keypad lock on the door. Without thinking, I entered a number. 960703, my birthday. Beep. The lock opened. For a moment, I felt as though everything was unreal, as though it were a dream. I mechanically raised my hand and pinched my face. It hurt. It wasn't a dream. I closed my eyes, pushed the door open. I froze. I had expected to see a warm, cozy living scene, but what greeted me was a room that seemed completely out of place. Low-hanging crystal chandeliers, redwood walls, large oil paintings, several sets of high-backed chairs and tables. It didn't look like a living room, it resembled a luxurious, elegant dining room. I stood at the door, watching silently for a moment. My heart sank slowly. I had seen this place before. A few times when I video called Ethan Quinn, it happened to be his dinner time, and the background behind him was exactly like this dining room. For some reason, I let out a soft laugh. In the silent house, the laughter echoed with a touch of absurdity. I slowly scanned the room. The bathroom door was open, and I caught a glimpse of something familiar. Last month, on the first day of winter, I had given Ethan Quinn a red scarf. I had spent half a month learning how to knit it by watching videos. Now, that red scarf was tied to the toilet seat, with a piece hanging down. It had become the toilet seat handle. I went upstairs and entered the master bedroom, where I saw a large double bed. It was much larger than average, as if custom-made. A black lace nightgown was casually draped over the pillow, exuding an irresistible allure. The walk-in closet was filled with men's clothing, suits, shirts, pajamas, all in Ethan Quinn's style. The bathroom had matching toothbrushes, towels, and razors for both men and women. I picked up the razor. There were remnants of stubble in the crevices. The surroundings were deathly quiet. Time seemed to slow down, and the world appeared to be freezing in place. I felt trapped in a viscous substance. I couldn't move or breathe. After what felt like an eternity, footsteps echoed from the stairs, followed by voices. A woman asked, "Are you really not going to eat?" A man replied, "I'll take a shower and leave. I have to be home by 7. I suddenly felt terrified. Unconsciously, I didn't want to see the truth that was about to be confirmed. I rushed to the balcony and crouched down by the wall. However, the glass cabinet door on the balcony clearly reflected the faces of two people. Ethan Quinn. Lydia Brooks. I hugged myself tightly, trembling. Ethan Quinn was slowly taking off his coat, suit, and watch. Lydia Brooks stood beside him, speaking softly. Why don't we go back later tonight? Ethan Quinn remained expressionless, continuing his actions. Lydia Brooks continued, it's a rare opportunity since you told her today that your boss had something urgent. You've crossed the line. Ethan Quinn's cold voice rang out. Lydia Brooks bit her lip, remained silent for a moment, then whispered. But you seemed to enjoy it today. Ethan Quinn's hand, which had been unbuttoning his shirt, paused. He lowered his eyes to look at her, saying nothing. Lydia Brooks' hand slid slowly under his shirt, moving downward. She was there, and you didn't get your fill, did you? Do you want to? Finish first, then wash. As the bedroom echoed with heavy breathing and low moans, snowflakes began to drift gently through the sky. It was the first snowfall of the winter. I stared, mesmerized, as if I were being drawn into the gray haze, rising endlessly. At that moment, I dared not rush in to confront him. I was afraid of feeling sick. I was afraid of seeing a scene that would make me feel sick to my stomach for the rest of my life. I didn't even have the strength to go downstairs and leave. Before she died, my mother sighed and said, I inherited her sensitivity and overthinking, but not her decisiveness. Fortunately, Ethan Quinn is meticulous and considerate. With him protecting me, I can live a worry-free life. My mother saw through me, but she misjudged Ethan Quinn. Snowflakes fell gently, covering the world in a light layer of white. Lydia Brooks walked out, wearing a nightgown, looking lazy and satisfied. The sound of footsteps came from the stairs. A middle-aged woman was leading a boy of about 3 years old up the stairs. Mom! Auntie brought Timmy home. The little boy called out sweetly. Lydia Brooks smiled and went to hug him. At that moment, the bedroom door opened, and Ethan Quinn, who had just finished showering, walked out wearing the exact same outfit. The little boy blinked his round eyes and excitedly called out, Daddy! Ethan Quinn walked over to the little boy, smiled, bent down, and touched the boy's face. A face that bore an uncanny resemblance to his own. The little boy chattered excitedly about what happened at kindergarten, while Lydia Brooks smiled gently beside him. Anyone would say this was a happy and harmonious family. When the little boy got excited, he tried to hug Ethan Quinn. Ethan Quinn stepped back and scolded him gently. Timmy, you forgot again. Timmy pouted in disappointment. Why can't I hug my dad like the other kids? I don't drink milk anymore, I don't smell like milk. Ethan Quinn glanced at Lydia Brooks. Lydia Brooks hurried forward and soothed him. Daddy has to work late tonight, he's very tired. Timmy, don't be naughty. Why does Daddy have to work every night? Lydia Brooks paused for a moment, then turned and whispered. Do you have to go? Can't you make an exception just this once? Ethan Quinn's face darkened. From now on, when she comes to the office, you must leave the building immediately. If you show up in front of her again, whether intentionally or not, you know the consequences. He spoke coldly, glanced at his watch, put on his coat, and walked out in large strides. A few minutes later, taking advantage of the empty living room, I rushed out of the house. I drove mechanically down the road at high speed. Snowflakes like arrows pelted the windshield, melting into winding streaks of water. 10 years ago, it was also a snowy day like this. At 18, I was sitting in the back seat of the car, cuddling up to my mother, when I encountered Ethan Quinn, shivering in the snow. The car skidded and knocked over his glove stall. The driver got out to apologize, but he shook his head and said it was okay, then bent down with his slender frame and silently began to clean up with his hands swollen from the cold. Even though he was selling gloves, he hadn't even bothered to put a pair on himself. I rolled down the window and asked with a smile. How much are the gloves? He straightened up, his dark eyes fixed on me, paused for a moment, and whispered. 8 yuan for women, 10 yuan for men. I tilted my head, then I'll take one of each. Help me pick them out. He selected a pair of pink ones and a pair of black ones and handed them to me. I took the pink gloves and waved them, smiling. The black ones are for you. As the car drove away, I turned to look back. The poor, lonely boy stood straight on the side of the road, gazing in the direction of the car, like a solitary bamboo shoot standing tall in the snow. Later, we reunited in college. Later still, my mother took a liking to him and decided to sponsor his education, sending both of us to an elite school abroad. We've been married for 5 years, and that little boy is about 3 years old now. In other words, Lydia Brooks became pregnant a year after we got married. It had only been half a year since he first mentioned Lydia Brooks to me. It had only been 2 or 3 months since my mother passed away. I gripped the steering wheel tightly and burst into tears like a child. Before I turned 28, everything in my life had gone smoothly. I was beautiful, wealthy, and well-liked. Everyone said I was a kind-hearted, beautiful young woman. Though my parents were divorced, they parted amicably. My mother, a CEO, and my father, an academic, both gave me ample love and support. After marriage, Ethan Quinn loved and pampered me. Every glance and gesture of his radiated obvious affection and favoritism. I have polycystic ovary syndrome, and the doctor said it would be difficult for me to conceive. I was heartbroken, but Ethan Quinn didn't seem to care. He joked that Lila Carter would have to rely on him alone in the future. He clearly valued me more than his own life. But it turned out that at the same time, while I was still immersed in the grief of my mother's death, when I trusted him completely, depended on him, and couldn't live without him, he was in bed with Lydia Brooks. I couldn't understand. I really couldn't understand. The world suddenly bared its fangs at me, revealing its dark side without warning. I was engulfed in a whirlwind of emotions. Shock, anger, panic, and fear. Mom, what should I do? I sobbed softly. Bang! A violent impact suddenly hit me. The world spun upside down, and I was thrown out of the car. I fell to the ground, staring up at the sky. The snowflakes seemed to finally become light. One by one. They drifted slowly, falling into my eyes. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself in a hospital bed. Screams echoed in my ears. Chloe Parker rushed over, her face filled with excitement, hugging me and crying. Lila, you're finally awake. You were unconscious for 18 days, do you know that? If you hadn't woken up, Ethan Quinn would have died right in front of you. I murmured weakly, Ethan Quinn. Chloe Parker comforted me repeatedly. He's here, he's here. The doctor just sent him back to sleep. Sigh, you'll see him soon. This car accident really put him through the ringer. While the doctor examined me, Chloe Parker kept talking non-stop by my ear. I was in the ICU for 3 days. Ethan Quinn stayed by the door for 3 days. He didn't eat a single grain of rice and didn't leave the hospital for a single step. When I was finally wheeled out, he collapsed backward with a thud, startling everyone. During the next 2 weeks of unconsciousness, he stayed by my bedside day and night, sitting silently, growing increasingly gaunt. The only day he left the hospital was to go to a temple in the Rocky Mountains. Someone took a photo and posted it online. I'll show you. Chloe Parker opened her phone and held it up to me. In front of the snow-covered temple, Ethan Quinn was kneeling straight in the snow. He had his head bowed, covered in thick snow, but he didn't move, resembling a despairing yet stubborn ice-covered snowman. The video's title read, "What kind of devotion made him kneel in the snow for hours?" Chloe Parker's voice trembled slightly. Lila, he must love you so much. I'm so jealous of your relationship. I turned to look out the window. The sky was gray and gloomy, blurry and indistinct. I closed my eyes gently. When Ethan Quinn appeared at the door, panting heavily, I didn't recognize him at first glance. He looked haggard and exhausted, his usually bright eyes sunken, and he had lost at least 10 pounds. He walked in dazedly, carefully reaching out to touch my face and my eyes, as if he couldn't believe it. Lila, you're awake? I'm not dreaming, am I? His eyes were red, and his voice trembled violently. I remained silent, staring at him. Ethan Quinn knelt down by my bedside and choked out. Don't be afraid, Lila. All your wounds will heal. I'll always be by your side. He said it, and he meant it. Though I had woken up, I could only lie weakly in bed. Ethan Quinn took care of me personally. Every day, he patiently fed me water, carefully wiped me down, calculated the time for my daily medication changes, and remembered the name of every single medicine. At night, he gently held me close, his voice so soft it seemed like it might melt away. Lila, I didn't protect you well enough. From now on, I won't eat dinner either. I'll come straight home to be with you after work, okay? Do you know what I was thinking outside the ICU? Maybe I shouldn't tell you, you're so sensitive, it might scare you. Lila, you must never, ever leave me. Do you understand? The doctors and nurses were all moved to tears, saying they'd never seen such a loving and considerate husband. Chloe Parker swore that when she found a husband, she'd use Ethan Quinn as her model. I could slowly start eating and get out of bed, but my mood was still low, and I didn't say a word all day. Ethan Quinn comforted me, saying it was post-traumatic stress disorder, and if I didn't want to talk, I didn't have to. He was there for me, and I didn't have to worry about anything. I felt like a small animal that had closed itself off to lick its wounds alone. I waited day after day, waiting for my body and mind to heal. One day, while Ethan Quinn was carefully peeling an apple, I looked up and saw Lydia Brooks standing at the door. She and I, separated by Ethan Quinn, stared at each other in silence. Lydia Brooks, who had always been timid, now looked straight at me with a steady gaze. "Miss Brooks is here." I tilted my head and slowly uttered those words. Ethan Quinn lowered his eyes, finished peeling the last slice of apple with a calm demeanor, handed it to me, then turned his head slowly, furrowing his brows and asking, "Miss Brooks? Aren't all the documents already electronically signed?" Lydia Brooks walked in, looking timid. "The finance department has an important document that requires your signature." Ethan Quinn furrowed his brows but remained silent. I spoke casually, "Why are you delivering the financial documents?" Lydia Brooks glanced at Ethan Quinn, her voice tinged with resentment. "I'm about to resign, so I don't have much on my plate. I'm just running an errand for the finance team." "Resigning?" I bit into the apple and turned to ask Ethan Quinn, "Is Miss Brooks quitting?" Ethan Quinn slowly wiped the juice off his hands with a tissue, an amused expression on his face. "As the chairman of the board, how would I know about such trivial matters?" Lydia Brooks' eyelashes fluttered, and her eyes suddenly turned red. "Mrs. Carter, I'm not ashamed to tell you, but my child's father wants us to move abroad, and he—" "Enough." Ethan Quinn stood up, cutting Lydia Brooks off. "My wife needs to rest and shouldn't be disturbed. Go sign it." A minute later, after the two had left, I got out of bed. As I walked around the corner, I heard Lydia Brooks' voice, choked with tears, faintly coming from behind the elevator. I approached silently. "Timmy hasn't seen you in a month. He misses you so much and asks his father every day why you won't come home. I've already agreed to go abroad with you. Please spend tonight with Timmy for his birthday. He's such a pitiful child who's never been held by his father. Don't we need a proper farewell? Ethan." Lydia Brooks looked up at Ethan Quinn, her eyes brimming with tears, helpless and pitiful. Ethan Quinn stood tall and straight. I didn't hear a single word he said. When Ethan Quinn returned to the ward, he came in laughing with the doctor. He looked cheerful, holding my hand and saying, "Lila, the doctor said you can be discharged in a couple of days. That's great. You've finally made it through." I nodded and said seriously, "Yes, I've finally made it through." He seemed to remember something and casually said, "Oh, there's an issue with the document Ms. Brooks sent over. I'll handle it at the office this afternoon and be back soon." I looked up at him. "How long will it take? Don't want me to leave, do you?" He smiled. "Don't worry, I'll be back before 7 p.m. I slowly closed my eyes and whispered, "All right." At 5 p.m., I finished the discharge procedures. The nurses were surprised. "At such an important time, your husband isn't here?" I smiled at them. "It's okay, I can manage on my own." At 6 p.m., I took a taxi to the villa complex. The security guard recognized me and greeted me politely. "Visiting a friend again?" I nodded. "Could you please open the gate?" "Of course." At 6:10 p.m., I stood at Lydia Brooks' door. My phone vibrated. Ethan Quinn had sent a message. "Lila, what do you want for dinner? I'll bring it back for you." I turned off my phone expressionlessly and entered the password. Click. The door opened. 3 people were gathered around the dining table inside. A birthday cake was on the table. Lydia Brooks was singing a birthday song with a smile on her face, putting a birthday hat on Timmy. Ethan Quinn was facing away from me, looking down at his phone. "Birthday cake, right?" I slowly uttered the words amid the singing. Lydia Brooks' singing stopped abruptly. She turned to look at me, her face filled with horror. Ethan Quinn's back didn't move. Though their postures hadn't changed, they suddenly seemed stiff and frozen. "Auntie, are you my parents' friend? Did you come to wish me a happy birthday too?" Timmy's face turned red, his innocent, childlike voice ringing out. I smiled and nodded. "Yes, Auntie wishes you a happy birthday." "Thank you, Auntie. Can I say something to your dad first?" "Sure." I took a step forward and walked up to Ethan Quinn. I looked down at him. Ethan Quinn was sitting there. His side profile was tense and stiff, his knuckles white from gripping his phone, motionless. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt your family time, but there's a document that needs your signature." I placed the document on the table. The first page boldly displayed the words, "Divorce Agreement." Ethan Quinn's entire body began to tremble slightly, but he never looked up at me. "Sign it as soon as possible, Mr. Quinn. If you don't sign within 3 days, I'll file a lawsuit in court. As a government partner, you shouldn't want to see things escalate to that point." I turned to look at Lydia Brooks. Her eyes were wide with panic and fear, and there was a hint of smugness and excitement. I chuckled softly. "Lydia Brooks, you've succeeded. This man is yours. Don't let me down, make sure you tie him down tight." After speaking, I turned to leave. Ethan Quinn, who had kept his head down the entire time, suddenly grabbed my hand, his voice trembling. "Lila." I pulled my hand away and said coldly, "Don't touch me. You're dirty." During those days in the hospital, I thought things through clearly. In the face of life and death, everything is just a scratch. Before this ordeal, I was sensitive and anxious. When faced with betrayal, I felt pain and doubt, and even lacked the courage to confront it head-on. After going through this ordeal, I realized that there is nothing more important in this world than living well. Living well. It means accepting the impermanence of life with composure. It means facing deception, betrayal, and the darkest moments of life, and still being able to slowly stand up and grow stronger. The divorce agreement was drafted by a lawyer while Ethan Quinn was away. The angel round funding for Ethan Quinn's startup was invested by my mother, who holds a 30% stake in the company. My mother has always had a sharp eye for investment, and Ethan Quinn's business acumen is exceptional. The $2 million invested back then has now appreciated 100-fold, enough to ensure I can live comfortably for the rest of my life. Everything else, the house, jewelry, bags, and Ethan Quinn, I don't want. Life is long, and I don't want to be entangled with disgusting people and things anymore. I didn't go home, I took a taxi straight to my mother's house. After finalizing the divorce agreement, I hired someone to clean the house thoroughly. Before going to bed that night, I carefully tucked myself under the blankets and whispered to myself in the darkness. "Lila Carter, it's okay. You can do this alone. Everything will be okay." On the third morning, I opened my eyes in the empty house and saw Ethan Quinn. He was sitting quietly by the bed, a distance away from me. The curtains let in a faint glow of daylight, blurring his outline, his expression dark and unclear. I stared at him calmly. "Ethan Quinn, tell me you're here to deliver the divorce papers." Ethan Quinn looked at me intently, his expression filled with sorrow, and spoke in a hoarse voice. "Lila, I won't divorce you." I remained indifferent and closed my eyes. "Can you leave? I don't want to hire someone else to clean the house again." There was a moment of silence, then a low voice spoke. "At first, I truly wanted to see Lydia Brooks as just another client. But on the day I transferred her to another department, she suddenly knelt down and confessed that she had recognized me all along. She begged for forgiveness, saying that if it hadn't been for her insistence that her drunk father pick her up that night, my parents wouldn't have died in that tragic accident. I had always believed she was completely innocent, and I could convince myself of that. But she told me she was the root of everything. I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed her by the throat in a fit of rage. I've always known there's a violent side to my personality. When I was with you, I could control it, but that day it erupted, and it's been out of control ever since. Lydia Brooks seemed to have come specifically to atone for me. Every time I scolded her or hit her, even until she fainted, she kept coming back, as if she enjoyed it. Until one day, I was drunk and had sex with her without even realizing it. We only did it once. I swear on my life, it was just that one accident. After realizing I had committed an unforgivable mistake, I wanted to send her away immediately, but she told me she was pregnant. Lila, I was prepared to not have the child with you, but when I thought about it, if there was a child, my parents who died in vain might find some comfort in the afterlife. I hesitated and chose to keep the child. During the time you were in the car accident, I realized that nothing is more important than you. I decided to cut off these years of mistakes, send them abroad, and never see them again. So on that day at the hospital, I agreed to spend the child's last birthday with them. I have no feelings for Lydia Brooks. To me, she was just a woman who, by a twist of fate, helped me have a child, like a surrogate, nothing more. I occasionally had private contact with her afterward, but only because of the child. That's the whole truth. Every day of these past years, I've felt guilty and tormented, afraid you'd see this ugly side of me. I never thought this day would come. Lila, I love you, and only you. For the sake of our years together, give me another chance. I had already decided to never see them again. They will never appear in our lives again. Lila, I can't live without you, and you can't live without me, right? Ethan Quinn spoke all this in one breath, his tone sincere and resolute, his eyes filled with pain and sorrow. The room fell into complete silence. After a long silence, I spoke softly. I saw everything. His gaze was deep and dark, fixed on me. Are you wondering what I saw? He bit his lip, saying nothing. I laughed softly and spoke slowly. On the day of the car accident, I saw her hiding under your desk, and I saw you and Lydia Brooks in that house. Ethan Quinn, did you enjoy it? I feel disgusted. Every moment I spent in the hospital, I felt utterly repulsed and sick to my stomach. Today, I saw you cross your own boundaries again. You're still lying to me, even swearing on your own life. Ethan Quinn, aren't you afraid your words will come true? So, betrayal, cruelty, manipulation, and deception, that's your true face? I spoke slowly, one word at a time. Ethan Quinn's face grew pale as I spoke calmly. He revealed a look of despair, his back hunched inch by inch until he collapsed onto the ground. I continued speaking. After each of your affairs, you go out of your way to take a shower. What are you afraid of? Afraid I'll smell the scent of another woman on you? Or do you find yourself disgusting? That house was decorated to mimic a real private dining restaurant, wasn't it? Just so I could video call you at any time? The house password is my birthday, the same as at my parents' place, so that when we're together and you enter the code to go home, it's smooth and natural, not arousing any suspicion, not a single flaw. You're truly meticulous, aren't you? Why bother, Ethan Quinn? Aren't you tired? I'll give you my place. You can live together as a family of 3 in the open. Isn't that better? Don't say you love me anymore. Every time I think about you just finishing with Lydia Brooks and coming home to tell me you love me, every time I think about our past intimate moments, I feel sick, physically sick. I don't even want to step foot in that house anymore. Ethan Quinn, get out. Don't let me see you again. I turned my back and didn't look at him again. The curtains gradually shifted from dark to light, and the house returned to its original tranquility. He left without a sound. The lawyer said Ethan Quinn refused to agree to the divorce. Did you say you'd sue? Yes, he said it's fine. I furrowed my brows. The lawyer looked at me hesitantly and said, I've handled many divorce cases, and I get the sense that Mr. Quinn isn't concerned about the company or the assets. Then what does he care about? Probably, not getting divorced. If the assets aren't clear, a divorce lawsuit could drag on even longer. In the middle of the night, I pulled back the curtains and looked down at the street below. A car was parked quietly by the roadside. It came in the middle of the night and left at dawn. This had been happening every day for the past month. I put on my coat and went downstairs, walking over to the car. Through the window, Ethan Quinn was sleeping inside, wrapped in a coat. I tapped on the glass, and he suddenly opened his eyes. His eyelashes trembled, revealing an expression of disbelief. He got out of the car and stood in front of me, his hands clenching and unclenching. Lila. The words caught in his throat, as if he couldn't continue. After a few seconds, he slowly continued. I didn't mean to show up here. I just couldn't sleep. I think about you all the time. The house is filled with your shadow, and I'll go mad if I stay there any longer. This is the only place I can rest my eyes for a moment. Lila, don't make me leave. I won't disturb you. Then I'll leave. I interrupted him. He froze. Where are you going? I remained silent. His body swayed slightly. No, no, Lila, you can't leave. In the darkness, he murmured urgently and frantically. I looked at him sarcastically. Isn't this all you're doing? You refuse to agree to a divorce by mutual consent. Filing for divorce means I'll have to see you again and again. So I'll just leave. As long as we're separated for 2 years, we can get divorced, right? Ethan Quinn's face turned pale, his eyes filled with despair. Lila, do you really hate me that much? I lowered my eyes, my emotions unruffled. It's not so much hate as it is disgust. Disgust to the point where I don't even want to fight over property with you or waste any more time or energy on you and your lover. We won't see each other. You live your life, and I'll start mine anew. If I find a new lover, that's even better, it'll prove I'm still capable of love. And that'll be evidence in court that our relationship is completely over. Ethan Quinn, don't cling to false hopes. I'll never forgive you, never. I turned and left. The winter night behind me was silent and empty. I bought a ticket to France. Leaving this place was a process of completely severing ties with the past for me. I didn't tell anyone. I spent 2 days quietly packing my bags and took a taxi to the airport early the next morning. In the car, I fell asleep, exhausted. When I woke up, I found myself in a strange house. The interior was warm and elegant, with bamboo groves and plum gardens outside the windows, and distant mountains in the distance. It was a solitary villa in the mountains. A young nurse walked in and smiled, saying, "Mrs. Carter, it's time for your medication." My heart sank. Where is Ethan Quinn? Mr. Cheen will be here shortly. There's heavy snow on the mountain, and the roads are difficult to navigate, but he said he'll definitely arrive by 7 o'clock. Where are my phone and luggage? The nurse smiled. Please take your medication. I don't know anything else. I asked quietly, what's wrong with me? You were in a car accident recently, which caused brain trauma. The doctor diagnosed you with delusional disorder and prescribed regular medication. So I can't leave now? Yes, the villa has no car, and only outsiders can enter. We can't go out either, and besides, your current physical condition isn't suitable for going out. I threw the medicine out the window and turned to her. Since I have delusional disorder, then everything I do is justified, right? The nurse's face turned pale with fear, and she hurried away. At 7 o'clock in the evening, Ethan Quinn arrived. He was wearing a coat, leather gloves, and had a thin layer of frost on his head and shoulders, wrapped in the cold air from the mountains. As he took off his gloves, he smiled and said, "Lila, the snow was heavy today, and my car broke down halfway up the mountain. I walked 7 or 8 miles to get here, rushing all the way, but I made it home by 7. I stared at him coldly. Home? Isn't your home Lydia Brooks' house? That's where your lover and your son are. He turned his head, raised his eyebrows slightly, and smiled at me. Lila, you're throwing another tantrum. I picked up the lamp on the side and threw it at him. The lamp hit his forehead, leaving a bloody mark. It was exactly where he had been burned years ago. He didn't flinch, bent down to pick up the lamp, and spoke gently. Lila, don't you like this design? It's my fault. I'll go buy the one you like tomorrow, okay? I suddenly broke down and screamed. Why did you do this? Why? Why can't I just leave? You cheated on me, I just wanted a divorce. I didn't even seek revenge on you or Lydia Brooks. Is that not enough? Ethan Quinn looked at me with a pained expression and said softly. Lila, we're married. How can we separate? Don't shout so loudly. The weather is dry, and it's bad for your voice. I stared at him in disbelief, feeling utterly. Is this Ethan Quinn? Is this the man I've been married to for 5 years? I felt lost and terrified. On the 5th day at the mountain villa, I gave up the idea of running away. The villa was located in a remote mountain valley with no cell service, and only a nurse and a maid took care of our daily needs. Heavy snow had blocked the roads, making it impossible to walk, and the only way out was Ethan Quinn's car. He left for work at 8 a.m. and returned at 7 p.m. Just like our previous routine. Except for not being able to leave, he didn't force me to do anything. He was even gentler and more patient than before. Most of the time, I sat silently on the sofa, hugging my legs, while he talked to me about various topics with interest, company matters, social news, his favorite history. I later found out that he drove 2 hours each way to the company every day, spending 4 hours on the road. Even during blizzards, he never arrived late. I couldn't understand. Aren't you tired? His eyes were gentle and clear. Seeing you makes me not tired. Then why did you cheat on me? He smiled, showing no hesitation. Since coming to this house, he seemed determined to be completely honest with me. When I was young, my parents died tragically. Later, relatives fought over our family's assets. After entering the business world, I was constantly caught up in backstabbing and deceit. I needed an outlet for extreme stress. And I didn't want to use those methods on you. I felt nothing but irony, so you cheated on me with Lydia Brooks. Ethan Quinn looked at me quietly and sighed softly. For me, sex and love are different. With Lydia Brooks, no matter how I treated her, I felt no psychological pressure. Lila, my heart has never left you. He stood up, carefully took out a pair of black gloves from the room, and looked at me with a gentle expression. Lila, these are the gloves you gave me when we first met. I've treasured them all these years. From that day on, my heart has belonged only to you. I became gloomy and spoke little all day. Ethan Quinn asked me how he could make me happier. I glanced at him and said listlessly, I miss Chloe Parker. Can I go out? He smiled, your body isn't fully healed yet. Why go through the trouble of going out? Why not have her come over instead? I suppressed my pounding heart, can I? Ethan Quinn gently stroked my head. If Lila wants to, there's nothing we can't do. The next day, he really drove Chloe Parker up the mountain. Chloe Parker ran over and hugged me excitedly. Lila Carter, I wondered where you've been all this time. You've been hiding in such a nice place to recover. I hugged her, both excited and shocked. At the dinner table, I was looking for an opportunity to give Chloe Parker the note I had written, when Ethan Quinn suddenly spoke up, casually asking Chloe Parker if her father was satisfied with the project. Chloe Parker exclaimed that he was extremely satisfied, so much so that her entire family had invested their entire fortune into it, even increasing the leverage by several times. Mr. Quinn, you can't pull out now, or our entire family will go bankrupt and be ruined. Haha. Chloe Parker laughed heartily. Ethan Quinn smiled, of course not. You're Lila's friend, I wouldn't let her friends suffer. I froze. Ethan Quinn turned to look at me gently. Lila, your friend is here to see you. Are you feeling better? I nodded stiffly. 2 days later, Ethan Quinn came again, this time with Sophia Taylor. Sophia Taylor's eyes welled up when she saw me. Lila Carter, when I visited you, you were still unconscious in the hospital. Now you've recovered so well. You've finally made it through. Sophia Taylor's father was a gambler, her brother was in prison for fighting, and she had an autistic son. The entire family relied on her hard work over the years. I dared not act rashly. In the plum garden after the snow had just stopped falling, Sophia Taylor and I sat on a stone bench chatting, laughter filling the air. Ethan Quinn stood on the second-floor balcony, one hand in his pocket and the other holding a cup of coffee, watching us with a pleased expression. I sighed. Back when we talked late into the night in the dorm, we all boasted about traveling the world. Now reality has slapped us in the face. Sophia Taylor laughed. Exactly. If you actually go to France this time, maybe you'll finally take that first step. She waved and smiled at Ethan Quinn as she spoke. I suddenly fell silent. Sophia Taylor. How did you know? I was going to France? Sophia Taylor stiffened. I spoke slowly. No one told anyone about my trip to France. The only place where my itinerary could have been revealed was the booking platform, and as the financial director, you had access to the shareholder information. So you've known the whole time? My voice trembled as I spoke. Sophia Taylor, did you even participate in kidnapping me? Lila Carter, I know Mr. Quinn wouldn't hurt you. So, my family's situation. I clenched my teeth and spoke slowly. What about Lydia Brooks? Did you know about that too? Sophia Taylor's face turned pale. I laughed softly. How foolish of me. The position of financial director is so crucial, and Ethan Quinn is such a cautious man. He would only trust someone he completely trusts. Sophia Taylor, I really misjudged you. Sophia Taylor closed her eyes in agony. Lila Carter, I'm sorry. My son's training classes are too expensive, and I desperately need this job. I remained silent for a moment, staring at the valley covered in snow. You know, all I have to do is mention your name to Ethan Quinn, and he'll fire you on the spot. Not only will you lose your job, but I'll also sue you for leaking shareholder information. No company in this city will hire you after that. Sophia Taylor's body began to tremble. I continued coldly. Tomorrow at noon, drive over to pick me up, Sophia Taylor. This is your only chance to make things right. Ethan Quinn walked over, his gaze scrutinizing. What were you two talking about? It looks so serious. I sighed softly, wrapping my arm around Sophia Taylor's pale face. Families with autistic children have it so tough. The next day at noon, light snow began to fall. I stood on the balcony, gazing toward the path. Finally, a white car appeared slowly. I turned quickly, put on my clothes, and went downstairs. In the living room on the first floor, the nanny looked at me in confusion and asked where I was going. I kept walking without stopping, heading straight out the door. As Sophia Taylor drove me down the road, I finally exhaled slowly. Mr. Quinn seemed suspicious. He specifically asked us this morning what we were talking about yesterday. He's always cautious, and I'm worried he might have followed me after I left the company. I looked at the snow falling heavier and said in a low voice, we need to get out of the mountains before the roads freeze. But after driving for a short while, the roads had already frozen. As we rounded a bend, the car skidded and collided with the mountainside, stalling. Sophia Taylor and I were frantically trying to fix the problem when Ethan Quinn's car sped up and approached us. He slammed on the brakes, got out of the car, and walked toward me with a grim expression. I took a step back and stood on the slope by the roadside. Ethan Quinn's face flashed with panic, and he stopped 3 meters away from me. Lila, come back. You'll fall. I stared at him silently, not moving. His eyes were bloodshot, and he clenched his teeth. Lila, come here. I glanced behind me and spoke slowly. Ethan Quinn, do you really love me that much? With that, I turned around decisively and jumped down the slope. Almost at the same time, a figure flew toward me and tightly embraced me. We fell down the slope, and Ethan Quinn caught me with his body. His right leg hit a rock, and he couldn't move. I silently climbed off him and looked down at him. Lila. He reached out his hand to me, his voice trembling, come home with me. On the slope, Sophia Taylor was screaming in panic. When I looked up, a large jeep had just come to a stop. Lydia Brooks got out and stared in disbelief at the scene before her. I closed my eyes and turned to crawl up the slope. Lila. Ethan Quinn's agonized shout echoed behind me. As Sophia Taylor and I rushed to Ethan Quinn's car, Lydia Brooks was frantically dialing 110. I drove the car down the mountain at full speed. In the quiet car, Sophia Taylor remained silent for a long time before finally asking. Lila Carter, you knew he would save you, didn't you? I bit my lip tightly. Tears streamed down my face. I returned to my father's house. He had remarried when I was 8 and had a younger brother. Over the years, I didn't want to disturb his new life and rarely contacted him. But at that moment, I desperately needed the comfort of family. When my father, stepmother, and brother saw me, they were all shocked. They hurriedly poured water and cut fruit. In the room filled with the scent of books and tea, I fell into a deep sleep. I slept for a very long and peaceful sleep. When I woke up, it was already evening. The 3 of them were quietly reading in the living room. My father and stepmother were university professors. My brother was a super smart student. My stepmother saw me, immediately got up, went to the kitchen, and brought out a plate of dumplings from the steamer. She called my name awkwardly and said there was more if I wanted some. Then she took my younger brother into the house, leaving the living room to me and my father. My father looked at me with a deep gaze. Lila, you've been wronged, haven't you? I burst into tears. Over the past few months, from discovering Lydia Brooks and Ethan Quinn's son through initial clues, to the car accident that left me unconscious, and then being locked in a mountain villa for 2 months. Events that turned my life upside down kept happening one after another. I didn't even have time to feel wronged before I was swept up in a storm, painfully transforming into a different person. I feel wronged, but my heart is also filled with unbearable sorrow. Ethan Quinn risked his life to save me. Yet I abandoned him in the valley. My father listened quietly as I finished speaking, not interrupting once. After a long silence, he spoke in a gentle voice. Ethan Quinn is too powerful, and he can't let go of you. He'll cause you trouble in the future. Divorce him and take back the company. I stared at my father in shock. He smiled at me. Don't worry. Divorce is troublesome, but it's not that difficult. But what about taking back the company? I asked, sobbing. My father narrowed his eyes slightly. The first lesson I taught your mother when I taught her how to do business was never to put all your eggs in one basket. She trusted Ethan Quinn, yet she had to be wary of him. Years ago, she invested in another rival company, and now it's a force to be reckoned with. Lila, don't worry. You still have your father. As I left, I couldn't help but ask. Dad, why did you divorce Mom? He spoke gently to me. Your mother and I are completely different individuals. Being together only drains us both. Lila, marriage is about becoming the best version of yourself, and divorce is too. You've done well these past few months. Your father is proud of you. I saw Ethan Quinn again 3 months later at the divorce signing. A lot had happened in the meantime. Selling off shares, Sophia Taylor jumping ship to a rival company, Ethan Quinn being exposed for bigamy, Lydia Brooks being cyberbullied, Ethan Quinn's company changing hands, and the divorce battle. Everything was orchestrated by my father. Meanwhile, I quietly followed a master to learn painting, spending 3 peaceful months. When my father told me everything was settled, I was utterly surprised and amazed by his capabilities as an academic. My father paused, his expression slightly complex. No, I handled half of this process, and Ethan Quinn gave in on the other half. Some things were even his idea. On the day we signed the divorce papers at the Civil Affairs Bureau, Ethan Quinn arrived with a cane. I had been well nourished during this time, my lips red and my complexion healthy. In contrast, he looked haggard and gaunt. I stared at his lame leg, momentarily dazed. Throughout the signing process, he cooperated fully, doing whatever was asked of him, but his gaze remained fixed on me. As we parted, I asked him, why did you agree again? He spoke calmly, I want to see you. What? I didn't understand. He smiled faintly, I couldn't resist. Divorce is fine, and so is losing the company. I just want to see you again. Lila, we've never been apart for this long. If I don't see you again, I'll die. He seemed to think of something and grew a bit happier. In a month, we'll see each other again. Lila, by then my leg should be better, and you won't see me looking so disheveled. As I left the Civil Affairs Bureau, I felt a pair of burning eyes following me, watching me until I was out of sight. When I turned into the parking lot to get into my car, Lydia Brooks suddenly appeared. I was startled by how much she had changed. Before, she wasn't particularly striking, but she looked delicate and fragile, evoking sympathy. Now, her eyes bulged outward, her cheekbones were prominent, and she had a harsh, domineering expression. She stared at me. Lila Carter, you're my nemesis. I tilted my head and glared at her. Lydia Brooks, this is all you deserve. You're the other woman. Bullshit. I knew him before you did, and I loved him first. I'm not the other woman, you are. Lydia Brooks spat out the words, her face contorted with hatred. When I was 17, I fell in love with him at his parents' funeral. I went through so much, scheming and plotting, just to make him love me too. But you always stood in our way. You made me love Ethan Quinn in secret, you made my son never be held by his father once in his life, all because Ethan Quinn was afraid of smelling like milk and being discovered by you. You broke his leg, you ruined his hard-earned company. That house was taken back, and our home is gone. Now everyone online is mocking me and my poor son, all because of you. I sighed softly. So why didn't you just stay content as his mistress? Why did you have to set up that scene with him shaving? Lydia Brooks clenched her lips tightly and glared at me with wide eyes. I sneered, Ethan Quinn is a man with OCD. He would never allow any residue on a razor. So that razor was forged, wasn't it? Ethan Quinn carefully took out the gloves I had given him when he was a child. When he saw them, I suddenly realized that even though he had betrayed me, he would never allow the scarf I had knitted for him to be tied to the toilet seat.